Hello and welcome to session 4 for Senior Leader. We're now going to look at Unit 3, which is around resource management. There's 2 learning outcomes to this. So we're going to do the first block. We'll talk about the assignment and we'll then do the second block and talk about that assignment too. So let's get straight into this module. And let's share my screen. So we can see here, we're going to look at the LMAC7, a resource management in adult care. And we'll start at the top. And let's go to student view so you can see what we do as a student. Lovely. So we're looking at unit L1.1, understanding principles for effective resource management. And this is key, really, because your resource management is what helps build your organization. It's what's going to give you strong foundation blocks. So looking at resources and looking at effective resource management, we first of all need to understand the business, the project, the principles, the governance, and the fundamental goals and ethics, etc. So let's just start off at the top. Every business has a business plan. In that business plan, it has the roadmap for achieving its goals. So that might be we want to have more private patients. To get more private patients, we need more staff or more highly skilled staff. And we may want some resources to support that. So we might be a bit more digital around how we monitor those patients, for example. So that's the business plan. We're going to look at then the statement of purpose and the service users guide. So what's our values? What do we stand for? So if one of our values is we're all about empowering independence, then our resources is going to be more about promoting independence than de-skilling, if that makes sense. So we need to make sure that whatever our values are, whatever our basic principles are, we can back that up with the right resources, and that supports the business plan or the project. We need to understand how governance, so how we're going to oversee all of that, takes place. So the governance then is looking at things like sustainability. So is this cost effective? Will it have a long-term outcome? How will it be funded? Where does that come from? And then finally, how are we going to implement, monitor, and review? So how do you measure the success of the resource? So if we're fighting for a resource could be people, systems. How do we ensure that actually they have a positive outcome? So here's some tips here. So first of all, we need to clarify the purpose. So why do we need this resource? What is it we're hoping to achieve? Now, if we go back to the last couple of sessions, we looked at different types of leadership style. We looked at organizations. We looked at systems and structures. So is it the fact that we're looking to restructure something within work, and therefore we need X, Y, Z to make that structure work? We need to look at the identifying it and its categorization. So what is it for? Is it a tangible? Is it going to be an asset? Is it going to be a resource, a human resource? Is it a system resource? So where does that come from? We then need to look at prioritization. So it's quite clear that all resources are equal. Some cost more, some cost less. Some have a bigger impact than others. But is it, I always talk about it as a jigsaw. So for you to complete the picture, you've got some missing pieces. Are these resources those missing pieces to get the jigsaw together? And whilst it may not be a now thing, is it a short-term or a long-term thing that we're looking at? We need to look at how we're going to allocate that resource effectively and fairly. So across workloads, we need to be flexible, look at accountability for it. So how's it going to fit in? Who's going to manage it? How does that work? We need to look at how that resource is going to be communicated. So who needs to know about this? The stakeholders, the family, service users, and everyone else. We need to be able to monitor those resources. So are they effective, and get some feedback? We need to get data-driven inputs. So once that resource has been implemented, what does success look like? We obviously need to manage that risk, and then we need that quality improvement cycle. So when we look at effective resource management, we're looking at those 10 key principles. So purpose, identification, prioritization, allocation, flexibility, communication, monitoring driven, risk, and quality improvement. So let's look at 1.1, where we explain the impact of national and local strategic drivers, including financial, physical, and human resources. So a strategic driver and national strategy is something that comes out of the government or local authorities. So, for example, a strategic driver might be, we want to do early identification of high blood pressure, and we want to ensure that everyone over 40 is able to have their blood pressure taken. So that's a national strategic driver. If we look at the resources for that, we've got our financial resources. So how does that get paid? Who's going to pay that? Where does that come from? What does the national and political trends look like on that? And there's a monitoring form or a process form called PESTEL, political, economical, social, and basically it's a planning form, and it enables you to look at strategic drivers in managing resources effectively. And again, local strategies could be around urban projects, so it could be a local funded strategy, and therefore we're looking at resources there to help manage that, and that may be a local budget in which pays for that. But if we think about the health checks, so doing blood pressures, we now have physical resources. So looking at national strategies, what does that look like? Where does it come from? How is that going to be led? So, for example, are we all going to get electronic blood pressure machines? Do we need to buy the physical ones? Is there going to be enough to go round, etc.? And then local strategies will be, well, how do we manage that locally? Where are we going to do these blood pressure checks? Is it all going to be in one area? Is it going to be in multiple areas? And then human resources are the people in which are going to manage those projects. So who's going to write the policies? Who's going to write the procedures? How do we get the quality assurance? How do we do skill gaps? How do we do talent? How do we do upskilling? And how do we monitor and review that? So when we think about national and local strategies planning for those physical resources, we can think about something that's relevant to the care sector. Think about the example that I've just given to be able to show that you're able to go through those planning processes. 1.2 looks at the importance of forecasting the resource requirements. So again, if we think about you want us to do blood pressure, and let's say we have to do, I don't know, 10,000 blood pressures in 4 weeks. It takes 5 minutes of blood pressure. Let's do some maths on that. So let's go to here. So we have 10,000. Why is that not working? It will work, I promise you. Why is that not working? Bear with me. I think the system's going to go slow. So let's say we've got that very much is on a go slow, isn't it? So let's say we've got 10,000 people to do blood pressure to Don't know why that's not working. Let's just give me 1 minute. Okay, so for some reason doesn't want to play ball. But what I was going to do is say, let's say we've got 10,000 people that need to have their blood pressure taken. It takes roughly 10 minutes. That will give you an estimated amount of time. If you want to get it done in a week, or if you want to get it done in a month, then you can divide that by the weeks or the months. That way you'll now know how many staff you need and how much equipment you need. So it gives you an idea. Ultimately, when we then look at the resources and the costs, that gives you an idea of resource allocation, because now you know how many people you need, what the time management looks like, what the equipment is. It gives you an idea on cost, because now you can cost it, because you can now say, well, actually, look, for 10,000 people, example, because my ChatGPT didn't want to work, but let's say it's going to take full time for a month. So that's going to be like a couple of £1,000 in salary. Let's say I needed 2 or 3 machines, a couple of £100. So let's just say, I don't know, it's going to cost roughly £2,500, whatever, to do that first project. You can then see what the project's worth in its tender, in its entirety. So what is the quality payment from NHS or from your local authority? And does that cover the cost there? So it gives you an idea of cost efficiency. So you can run a profit and loss on that project to see whether or not it's going to work. Obviously, you're going to want to make sure that you have resource availability so you don't get an impact on workflow. So making sure that you've got things like appointments probably going out. How do you manage that for a sustainable appointment setting thing? You know, taking blood pressure doesn't take that long, but if you have 100 people turn up at once, that's going to take a long time to get through. So just managing those resources. Thinking about your strategic planning. So once we've done this blood pressure monitoring, what is it we're going to do off the back of it? So what's the goals after this? Is it the case that once we've collected that data, we've got people's blood pressures? Are we going to go back and then review that? Is it the case there's sent out information? Do we then go, those that were 140/60, your stage 1 hypertension, so we're going to want to monitor you? And then does the early monitoring then show a cost reduction in the long run? So just looking at that plan there. Mitigating risks, so looking at how you manage that and contingency plans. So again, you've got your electronic blood pressures, you've got your manual blood pressures. How do you keep up with that? Meeting the demands. So thinking about how you manage this. Are you going to use online booking systems? Are you going to do it manually? How is it you're going to do it? Think of the resources you need. Look at informed decision making. So how do you get that decision making information over? So, for example, maybe you'd want to do a YouTube video like this. Hi, everyone. My name's Steve. Today, we're going to talk about taking blood pressure. The reason we're going to do this is we want to see if you've got hypertension. Stage 1 hypertension, 140/60. Stage 2, maybe 150/60 to 80. Stage 3, you're up in the 180s. The aim of this project is to reduce it. If you come up with high blood pressure, what we're going to do is we're going to reach out to you or come back to us and we can talk about statins, lifestyle, and exercise. Now, by doing a recording, you're only going to do it once. You're not going to have to repeat yourself. That's going to save time. So looking at resource efficiency, how can you do the same thing to achieve the same outcome but save money? So if you had to print out a handout or a leaflet, so you think when COVID hit, all of those leaflets were produced in every single injection. Yeah, they could have done a digital leaflet, couldn't they? Here's your digital leaflet. There's an app. Click on here. Think of the money that would have saved printing all of that out. Nobody read it. All just went in the bin. So thinking about resources, thinking about being ethical, thinking about sustainability, thinking about environmental impact, there are things that we can do to reduce cost effectiveness. So, for example, thinking about your service, You produce a service user guide, a lovely service user guide. It's sort of looking all lovely. You type it up, you hand it over, and everyone wants one printed out. Do they read it? Probably not. Does it go in the back of a drawer somewhere? Probably. But you could do a video. Hi, everyone. My name's Steve. I'm from, I don't know, this care group. And this is our statement of purpose. Great. Just a little bit of effort to make something different can have a profound impact. And by doing it digitally, recording it, we've then got it in a verbal text as well. So for those that find things to read hard to understand, great. We've met accessible information. So we don't have to do everything typed. We can use innovation and technology, and I urge you to use innovation and technology. So again, with informed decision making, we can do that in a recording. Hi, everyone. Before we start this process, we need your consent. To get consent, this is how we get it. We're going to explain the procedure. We're going to explain the risk. You're going to join in and hopefully agree or disagree. You can either click on this form, you can sign this form or whatever. But ultimately, let's streamline that process. We can collaborate in partnerships. So we can work across other organizations to look at how we can network for resource requirements. So let's think of one of the things that affects us all in social care, which is recruitment. We're all in a problem of recruitment. We're all paying huge amounts of money for job ads and recruitment and retention. But if we worked more locally, we could have maybe a recruitment organization that comes together to recruit on behalf of all of these companies and then share that cost. So it's a bit more of a cost-effective approach. So we're just saying, look, you've got to forecast your resources. You've got your budget and spending. You need to think about how you're going to manage those resources. And it isn't just the case that you've got this empty pot of money, because I guarantee you this, every business now is having to save on its bottom line. When we think about explaining the value of assets and resources outside traditional services in the community, again, we're thinking about how we can use diverse resource pools. Are there already things going on that we can access? Being cost efficient, how can we leverage in-house solutions, saving on money? How can we look at enhanced collaboration? So working with other people to create our own thing. So we talk about training. You know, everyone talks about the care certificate, and I see organizations printing out all of these care certificate books, but meanwhile, you can do it for free online via Higher Education England. You can sit there and do a recorded session yourself and have the videos just there. So you've already done your videos. And granted, you know what? Yes, it may take 15 hours to produce your own videos, but think how many hours it's taken for you to print these books, write them, fill them in, send them out. It takes forever. So just ring fencing the way that we think about things is where we need to be. Cultural sensitivity. So again, just thinking about your local requirements and how you can meet that is really important. And ultimately, it is all about building trust and engagement. So the more we engage with the local population, the more we do, the more we utilize what we have, the less we're seen as being wasteful, and we're minimizing waste. So I was part of a project last year called the Universal Healthcare Project. And it was all about narrowing the gap for people to access healthcare and using innovation or innovative ways of doing it. And of course, the very first thing everyone was saying, what's the budget? How much can we spend on this? And I sat there banging my head on the table going, we have so many projects like this already done. So many projects like this already done. We're just not bringing them together, you know? And when we think about it, if we want to do things about accessing healthcare, we've got digital resources that can do that. We've built the apps, we've built the online stuff, we've got pharmacies and doctors and hospitals. Do we need another service coming together to do it? We've got care navigators, we've got social prescribers. What we're missing is the person bringing it all together, and that's what your role is. Our role is to understand the resources that's already there. Skills for Care, as far as I am concerned, is one of the best resources we have, and it is totally underutilized by a lot of companies. We had the Care app with lots of resources online there. We've got the Social Institute Care of Excellence, huge amounts of resources there. We've got NICE guidelines, huge amounts of resources there. And yet we are still saying, what else could we do to make this work? Let's stop wasting money. Let's look at how we can work in a much more collaborative approach. You've got Dementia Friends, you've got Care Champion stuff. It's all there. We just need to bring it together under one umbrella to manage it more effectively. By doing that, you're going to come up with cost-effective solutions, a much more enhanced collaboration. You'll have a tailored solution because you'll run it to your own business. Looking at your local economy, again, when we look at recruitment, there's multiple charities out there, multiple charities looking at trying to get people into employment. And one of the things that's concerning me a lot is this tier 2. Now, I absolutely love tier 2. It has an absolute place within what we're doing. And any nurse or highly skilled worker that's come to the UK to work, I absolutely applaud you and respect everything you've done. However, here's the problem. It's not solving our solution, which is about local recruitment and local retention for jobs within our area. What is it we can do to work differently to recruit and retain those staff? And we keep talking about it, but the reality is there's so many different things we can do. There's discount services, there's charities and organizations, there's social prescribing that we can be doing, there's different online things around benefits and discounts. There's education and training and removing this glass ceiling effect. There's different leadership styles and approaches. There's innovative ways of working and different technology. There are so many things that we could do to retain our staff. But ultimately, other ways to retain our staff is just by good leadership. Good leadership. So looking at those opportunities, not holding back our staff, but looking at them as an asset, I think is where we need to be. Because there are a lot of homes that I go to that have kept their staff for years. And those are the homes that are loyal. They're not but they're not burning their staff out. They have good leadership. And the homes, unfortunately, the services that have high retention are the services that have poor leadership. It just seems to be a theme there. And it's got nothing to do with pay. It has absolutely nothing to do with pay, because ultimately these homes that retain their staff are paying exactly the same as the homes that aren't keeping their staff. So it's got nothing to do with that. It's to do with about valuing people, the ethics, the value behind the organization. So if you're looking towards a sustainable workforce, are you looking at recruitment and retention as a piece of work that needs to be done, not being defensive, but really understanding? So there is obviously a place for technology as resourcing goes on, and we need to be mindful. Sorry, I'm dying of a flu, cold man flu hit. We need to be mindful of how technology can work. So those that are looking at what I'm doing clearly know that I do a digital series. We've got digital skills and social care. It's on Skills for Care. It wasn't my genius little pot. I tell you what, everyone, let's do digital skills. I wish it was me, but it wasn't. It was Skills for Care going, really? We've got all of these resources. They're all online. Let's use them more efficiently. We have a whole workforce that isn't tapped into, a neurodivergent workforce. And actually, we can make reasonable adjustments. We can use digital technology to innovate, to bring them in, to upskill them, to show them that they absolutely have a career and can achieve goals if we use innovation. And again, I'm a great example of that. Those that know me know that I'm dyslexic. They know that I have ADHD. But I've been able to use technology to manage my symptoms, my ADHD, so slow my cognition down, but also to use resources such as reading software and writing software, and now with ChatGPT coming through, with AI technology to help me articulate myself. So I've always had it in my head. I've always known what I wanted to say and how I wanted to say it. I just struggled sometimes getting it out or in the right order. It didn't mean that I wasn't able to do the role, but I had to find my lane, and it's taken me many years to find my lane. But once you find it, you're comfortable within it. So there is an absolute huge piece of work we could do there about working with people to give them an opportunity to find the lane and give them the tools and the resources to do the role. And then hopefully from that, you'll get loyalty, because I was incredibly loyal to the organizations that I've worked in. And that's because if you're loyal to people that are neurodivergent, they're normally very loyal back. So thinking about service delivery, thinking about accessibility, thinking about effectiveness, the speed, the real-time communications, data-driven insight, and then looking at service management. So resources, performance tracking, workflow, feedback, data analysis, remote management, and performance analysis. So again, all of the stuff that we are doing well now because of COVID. 1.5 then looks at describe the meaning of sustainability in terms of resource management. So again, there are lots of things to help us become sustainable in our workforce, sustainable with our equipment, sustainable with our green initiatives. And for some of that, we're looking around using our ISO environmental health standards. So looking at biodiversity, looking at cycle to work schemes, looking at less printing, paper-free organizations, looking at using apps to upskill and train. There is so much that we can do to achieve those green goals that we're just not doing. Equally around the quality of care. So sustainability and continuity of care is key. But again, if we look at what keeps people within the jobs, it's the ability to perform, it's the ability to succeed, it's the ability to have some flexibility. So there's lots of things that we can look at to help keep a sustainable workforce. And then economic, okay, financial viability is a real problem. But again, under-resourcing, good, sustainable financial outcomes in a business is a 50-50 split, some private, some funded. And then we should be looking at our short-term goals, medium-term goals, and long-term goals. We need to understand roles and responsibilities around resource management within organizations. So that's leadership and management, our roles and responsibilities. What is it you want us to do? Remember, leaders are inspirational people, managers are followers of KPIs. With resource management, who's going to do the procurement, who's going to oversee it, who's going to allocate it. You may have department heads, so that might be your cleaners, your cooks. And again, if you think about all of the homes in your area where you work, and you've got maybe a local farm, or maybe you've got a local butcher's, imagine if you said to them, look, guys, if we club together and we went to the butcher's and we're 10 nursing homes, could we get our meat fresh from you rather than from the supermarkets? So sourcing locally, recruiting locally is the way to go. I'm absolutely convinced. If we want to reduce our carbon emission, if we want to reduce our footprint, then it's all got to be local based. And I understand that we're in a business. I understand that our competitors are, when we're procuring and buying, it's going to be, supermarket costs such as your Lidls and your Aldi's. But if you went straight to suppliers like Poundland and you struck a deal with them, said, look, there's 10 care homes here. We need to buy shampoos in all of them. Can we have an extra 10% discount on boxes of? I'm sure they could manage it, So we've all got to save these pennies. And it's the old phrase is look after the pennies and they'll look after the pounds. Never thought you'd hear me saying that, by the way. I was always, oh no, let's not worry about that just yet. But in the credit crisis we're in the financial crisis we're in, and with all of the cutbacks that we keep facing, we have now got to start tightening our seatbelts. Your FD departments, your human resource departments, and your IT departments. So again, are they all absolutely necessary? Can we outsource them? Can we do it cheaper? How else can we manage those roles and responsibilities? So again, they're the roles. Responsibilities then, having clear lines of responsibilities, and again, for accountabilities. So each role will have its own responsibilities and accountabilities to their stakeholders and to the organization. So 1.7 then, we need to explain the importance of business continuity planning. Now, business continuity planning is an absolute vital piece of work. If you've been in care in the last couple of years, you're going to know that this is a given. We can't avoid it, but there are ISO standards out there for business continuity planning. So if you are part of the United Care Network, you can gain some of this stuff from our quality bank. But in your business continuity plan, how do you manage risk? How do you manage risk from a fire? How do you manage risk from a flood? How do you manage risk from the flu, COVID? So these are the business continuity plans that you're going to need. And in your business continuity plan, you need to show how you can mitigate against all factors. And those factors are going to be acts of God, cyber attack, and ill health and staffing. So, what happens if your computer system goes down? What's your plan B? If your medication is all on EMR charts, have you got a manual system? And then who's responsible for making sure manual system works over the business continuity planning? So read your business continuity planning policy, look at your business continuity plan. And I was, in my younger days, the EPOS officer for the Red Cross, which was the emergency planning officer. And it was my job to prepare my town for a disaster. So let's just say we had a flood. My role as the EPOS EPO officer, emergency planning officer, was to know the schools and colleges. Can we use tools? Where would we get blankets from? Where was the supply of torches and batteries? Where can we get fresh water and food from? So your business continuity planning is all of that stuff. So if your service, for some reason, had to close its doors, have you got an agreement with the church down the road? Is there a way that you can move all your residents to a safe space quickly to keep people safe? So that's where your business continuity plan comes in. And again, staffing. What's the minimum staffing crew you can go under? So let's look at learning outcome 1, which is resource management. This essay question looks at resource management and strategic considerations in adult care. You're required to look at resource management in adult care, endeavour to look at both national and local strategies, as well as emerging trends in service delivery, technology integration, sustainability, and business continuity. This essay explores the dynamic interplay between those aspects of resource planning management in the realms of adult social care. Now, I'm not going to read this all to you, but basically, you have to write an essay to cover these points. Now, as always, we give you an example afterwards. And there's your example essay as well. So you know what to do. You hit start assignments. And then ideally the assignment will come up. There we go. And in there, you would put the aim of this essay is to look at service delivery, technology, integration, sustainability, and continuity planning. And then you're going to run through to make sure that you've met those learning outcomes. Wonderful. And remember, the learning outcomes in which you are trying to demonstrate are 1.1 or 1.1. There you go. So you're covering those. So you need to explain the national and local strategies, explain the importance for forecasting resources, explain the value of assets and resources, describe the place for technology, describe the meaning of sustainability, explain the roles, and explain the importance of business continuity. So that's what you need to do there, and there's your answer. Lovely. Now let's have a look at understanding principles of effective human resources. So, understanding the principles of effective human resourcing, or HR, we need to look at the process. So the process for human resourcing is recruitment and selection. So identifying and hiring the right candidates. That involves crafting the job descriptions, looking at fair objectives, looking at the quality impact, and kind of making sure that you are advertising in line with your policies and procedures correctly. You've then got your training and development, so upskilling of the staff. You've then got your performance management. You've then got to look at what you're paying them for their talent and their benefits. You've got to look at employee relationships, so building that Tuckman's theory to normalizing. You've got to look at how you're managing your talent pool for diversity and inclusion, so showing that you are recruiting from a diverse talent pool. You've got your workforce planning, so making sure that on each shift you've got the right skills and expertise to manage the people that you're looking after. Look at your employee engagement. You've got your health and safety consideration. You've got your ethical principles to consider, your employee well-being. So I'm going to show you something there, and then your continuous quality improvement. So looking at national policies and procedures around safe recruitment, you generally have for CQC, there is a safe recruitment policy. So just to show you this, so if you go CQC safe recruitment. There we go. Regulation 19, safe recruitment of employees, and that lists the policies in which you need to follow. So please make sure that you follow the safe recruitment policies, and make sure that you meet those requirements, because if you don't, CQC will definitely get you, and they are not taking any prisoners. So please make sure you read that. Equally, and I'll tell you what we'll do, because that is so important, just because we're part of a continual quality improvement cycle anyway, I think what we'll do, we will just put that in the text there. Please read. There. Normal legislation, and I'm not going to run through all of this legislation, because if you don't know it by now on a level 5, I don't know when you will, because ultimately you will have covered this in your level 2s, your level 3s, and legislation doesn't change. It just is what it is, right? So we've got the Equality Act, GDPR, rehabilitation, codes of practice, data and barring, public sector equality, recruitment selection process, biasness training, job descriptions, and fair interviewing techniques. So all of the normal stuff. What's the most important thing is to click on that link and read that, because that is what CQC expects you to do under safe recruitment. So describe the approaches to know and how to improve recruitment and retention of adult care staff. So again, here, this is all great, but what I want to give you here is skills for care, because let's not reinvent the wheels. For some reason, my internet is going so slow. Skills for care. So skills for care have a whole section on recruitment and retention. Oh. Skills for care. That's very, very annoying, because now you're going to have to hear me say skills for care 100 times. So skills. Doesn't want to work, does it, people? Doesn't want to work. Skills. Okay. Recruitment. There we go. Recruitment and support. They have a whole section. Whole section, people. Read this. This is the best training you're going to get. It looks at planning. It looks at attracting. It looks at supporting. It looks at value-based. It looks at making sure that you get the right people in the right role. Far more effective than all of my waffle that I've written there. I'm not underselling what I've written, but let's just put that in here, please. Right, there we go. So again, just reading what Skills for Care have put. They've talked about recruitment and selection. They've talked about strategies and plans and attracting the right workforce and how to manage and all of this stuff. So all of this stuff on here, they've covered. And again, you've heard me talk in other sessions as well. It's about being supportive. It's about being adaptable. It's about having flexibility, having clear strategies, having clear contingency plans, and being well led. So describe the recruitment, selection, retention process in organizations within your own role. So here we look at kind of what it is. The recruitment process is always going to be about identifying, selecting the right candidate, etc. But within your organization, there are legal responsibilities here as well. So recruiters, okay. And let's go. Now, there's a couple of companies. There we go. There it is. Application and selection process from Skills for Care. So let's just follow theirs, right? Theirs has got to be right. They're the Sector Skill Council. So we've put that in there as well. So you can just click on that. But ultimately, we know what there should be. But if you look at here, you've got your background checks, you've got your they have checklists for you. They look at how to identify the best people. They look at the safer recruitment for DBS. They look at how you should be getting references for safer recruitment. So ultimately, if you're going to recruit somebody, take it from a reliable source. Now, again, on here, they have got some guidance. So ACAS is a government website that's able to help with recruitment and retention of staff as well. So they give you the legal aspect of everything. So bear that in mind. Right, so that's recruitment and selection. Explain the importance of ensuring employee policies are free from discrimination and harassment. Well, it's a given, isn't it? We've talked about the Equality Act 2010 already. And, you know, part of what you will do or part of what you have to provide CQC is this data for how you work in a non-discriminatory form. And that can be really difficult. But showing that you are non-discriminatory and that you're meeting all of those things throughout all of your policies, you need to make sure that you have that all in place. Now, ACAS, Skills for Care, Citizens Advice Bureau can look at everything and give you advice and guidance. There's many organisations out there like Peninsula, Citation, or my particular favourite one is the Federation of Small Businesses. They can give you legal advice, but they are very expensive organisations. Where actually, if you follow just the ACAS guidance or the Skills for Care guidance, you can't get it wrong. But explaining the importance, obviously, is you've got legal requirements, you've got inclusion, you've got job satisfaction, you've got retention. You've got about promoting a positive culture, okay? 2.5, describe how to identify a number of patterns for staff required to provide an outcome-based person-centered care. So this is looking at your staffing levels to meet safe levels of care. Now, this one is a bit tricky because there's lots of different ways on this. And I'm going to show you another website which shows how you can work out the number of staff for care. So, as I said, this one gets a little bit more tricky because there's lots of different theories out here for identifying the number of staff required to achieve outcomes in person-centered care. What I've done is I found you 3 helpful things. So first of all is what CQC says about staffing. So that's Regulation 18, staffing. So have a read of this, understand the regulation, and be sure that you are meeting the safe staffing levels. The second thing is then Skills for Care have produced their own guidance. So here is your guide to safe staffing. And in here, they talk about using a matrix tool, justifying safe levels, looking at how to work it out, the regulations. So this is a really useful tool. And again, look, it's a live thing. It's got links in there. So follow through on this. It's a really helpful tool. Now, if at the end of that you're like, well, I still need something, there is an organization out there called Quality for Care, and they do, and I have purchased some of these materials before. They are really, really helpful. But here, this is a Starfold data matrix tool, and basically in here you can put in this is your safer recruitment sheet. It does other things in there, so it can work out how many staff you need, so number of staff, etc., etc. So it helps you manage your process there. So it's up to you. Obviously, it's up to you what you do. But just be mindful that safe recruiting isn't as simple as somebody going, you must have one person, you must have one member of staff for 10 hours of care or whatever it is. I've heard some ridiculous things in my life, It's about meeting needs. So if you've got complex care, then you're going to need that there. So bear that in mind. So hopefully that helps. So analyze factors that could influence staffing requirements. Well, factors. So when you look at your incident reports, when you look at things like accident reports, when you look at ABC forms, when you look at staff matrices and competencies, there's a lot of factors that could influence what you need. So it could be clinical skills. Every shift you should have a first aider, a fire warden, somebody responsible for medication, somebody that's got basic life support skills, somebody that can manage falls. So you may have to have so many level 2s or 3s. So bear in mind that the factors that influence staffing requirements are regulatory, internal, and external. But again, they have problems around budgeting and all of this lot, so be mindful about that. So consider how to manage staffing patterns and adjust them to meet the changing circumstances with your own setting. Obviously, within your own setting, you're going to have your contingency plan. You're going to have staffing. Staff sickness, holidays. You're going to have healthcare needs go up and down. So CHC assessments possibly. And that's going to adjust your staffing levels. And then ultimately, as you adjust your staffing levels, you need to show that continual improvement. So yes, it's okay having these rotas all in play, and that's great that you've got rotas and everything, but be mindful that it goes up and down. It's peaks and troughs. explain the succession and continuity planning for the workforce and how to achieve this. So we spoke about earlier about your workforce contingency planning. Again, it's not a new thing. If you go to contingency planning and we put, bear with me. So we're going to do ways to achieve contingency planning. Contingency scanning skills for care. There we are. Contingency planning skills for care. So looking at what you're looking at here is your people, your workforce, the environment, regulatory requirements, and supplying. And then again here, you've got links to, that page isn't obviously being met. Latest guidance and advice. So there's all your information about COVID-19, etc., etc. So contingency planning is a requirement. It gives you an idea about what you need to look at. Health and social care. The councils made us all do contingency plans at the beginning of the pandemic. Some are a lot more bigger than others, but you can see here, look, there's just lots of different versions of contingency plans. So have a look at yours, see if yours holds up. Yeah, and just make sure yours is fit for purpose, really. Right, so learning outcome 2. Here, you need to discuss your workforce planning. Here, explain legislation, describe approaches, detailed recruitment, explain uphold employment practices, describe methods, analyze factors that influence this, consider challenges, and explain concepts. So again, here, you can just copy that and then put that in. So here, you can start your assignment, copy that in, and then just put your answers in there. So that just saves you a bit of time. Again, next page, we've given you the answers. So it gives you something. But again, I'd like that personalized. Back to, I think I froze there. I want you to obviously personalize that to make sure that that reflects your organization. So as we said, just thinking about everything there, just make sure that you're meeting those requirements. And I just want to make sure. Yeah. So that's the end of resource management. So hopefully you found that useful. It's given you an idea to think a bit more outside the box. Next week, we're going to go into governance for adult social care. One of the things that I was going to show you about staff wellbeing, when you think about your resources, I'll add this in as well. Here is a wellbeing toolkit. I'll add this in for you so you can have a look at this. So again, this was developed by QCS. I'm not endorsing QCS as a compliance system, but again, if we think about retention of staff, doing a stress and and looking at their well-being is really important for showing staff that they feel valued. And there's a lovely tool there. And next week, we're going to be looking at governance. So here's a governance tool as well. So we'll add that in. Right, lovely. So that's the end of the session. If there's anything you need to know, by all means, drop me a line. But I wish you all the best of luck. Try and get that work over to me within the week. And I will see you all next week. Take care. Bye for now.